right, guys. So we're moving on. Like I said last week, we started off with some communication stuff, and we are going to hopefully be back in school after the first 9 weeks. And I really want you guys to give speeches in class. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're gonna do this. We're working on just communication skills and building those communication skills so that when we get back, you guys will be ready to go, and we can just build those speeches, and you guys can present. Hopefully, ideally and preferably, I would like to give speeches by the end of the semester. That's usually what I do with your class. Is we give speeches at the end of the semester. We'll see if we get to do that. I really don't want to do speeches in this online learning, so I'm hoping we get to come back to school by then. We'll see what happens though. I'll go into detail kind of what to expect assignment wise for this week at the end of the video. But for now, we'll kind of do this, and we'll talk about understanding effective communication techniques. So what can be done to become a more effective communicator? You got to have listening, speaking, writing, and reading skills to enhance your communication abilities. Those are 4 areas that are a must for communication. Even if you're not a great reader, you still have to be able. Even if you can read, you still have that skill, and you can enhance your communication skills. Okay, but like we talked about having selective hearing or whatever, that can be an issue that can hinder your communication abilities. But we'll get into it. Okay. So effective listening skills are important in communication. It's like I was saying, that selective hearing that some people have is hard to communicate with people that have selective hearing. And I know everybody has it from time to time. It just makes that communication hard. So when you're in a conversation, when you're communicating with somebody, it's important to have purpose. And when you're listening to them, if you have that purpose, you're going to understand what they're saying. Really, guys, when you're thinking about it, it's like 11% of what you listen to is what you retain. That's not very much. So you need to really have a purpose for when you're listening and communicating with somebody. So you got to know why you're listening and know what you're listening for. You can't be in Mr. D's class or whatever and him be telling you something and you not pay attention, then you get to go to the office and you have no idea why. Okay, so identify the listening cues, the introduction, the main idea, examples, details, conclusion. That's the basic body of anything you've done as far as a writing assignment. That's the basic body. Okay, introduction, main ideas. You throw in some examples, give some details, and have a conclusion. Okay, so if you're listening to a speech, you really need to listen to those main ideas and the examples. That's where that information is going to be held. Okay, recognize common patterns. Try to organize the information. It makes it hard when information isn't organized. So if you can, as you're listening, just organize the information as it comes to you. So effective listening skills, again, they're important in communication. Concentrate on the message rather than the speaker. Okay, you might go see a speaker or something, and you can't focus on what they're saying because he's got a big old booger hanging out his nose. Okay, so if you're focusing on the message, then you're going to be able to retain that information. So 3 important steps to follow in effective speaking. Select the message to match the receiver. So you got to know, I mean, it's basically know your audience. You're not going to be able to communicate about like football. If you play football, you're not going to be able to communicate effectively about football if your audience is, if they play video games all day or something, or they, all they do is watch movies and they don't pay attention to football. You're not going to be able to convey that message very clearly. Organize it in a pattern that the receiver will recognize. And again, that's that introduction, main ideas, examples, details, conclusions. Okay, use a proper technique in delivering the message. You don't want to be aggressive when you're trying to deliver that message. Effective reading skills, they can improve that communicating ability. Scanning, it's the process of locating specific detail mixed with other material. Skimming, reading to determine only the main ideas. A lot of you guys might do some skimming when you're reading science or history. Summarizing, putting all the writer's ideas into your own words. Okay, so you're summarizing the main ideas and you're making it work for you. You're making it make sense in your head. Okay, and then developing good writing skills. And, I'm a firm believer in having good writing skills. I think we've lost some writing skills from the time that I was in high school to you guys being in high school, because texting and social media and messaging and all that has become such a big thing that, we forget what good writing skills are. So it's extremely important to pay attention in English when you guys are writing, so you can have good grammar, good spelling, and you can convey messages when you're writing things out. At some point you guys are going to have to write cover letters. You're going to have to develop resumes. You're going to have to, write letters for scholarships and all that. And your writing skills are going to have to be good so that you guys can get those. Or if you're going for a job, you're going to have to be able to develop a cover letter so you can look like a suitable candidate for that job. Plan your writing by asking yourself the following: who is the audience? What is the purpose? What do I want to say? How should I organize the information? And what examples will help my audience remember the main points? And what is the most effective format? So there's different formats when you're writing. You might use some sort of letter format. You might use APA style, MLA style. You guys may not have learned any of that stuff yet, but it's important that you know it, especially when you go to college. I mean, they make you use it all the time when you're writing papers. When you're writing something, it's the same thing. You got to know who your audience is so you can kind of filter that message towards that audience. So when writing, remember the 5 W's, okay? Who, what, when, where, and why. And that it's important to always remember these guys, especially when writing: who you're writing to, what you're writing about, when it happened, where it could happen, and why it's happening. Okay, why is effective feedback important? It's important. It's an important tool for maintaining total communication, and that's the proper use of feedback. Feedback is the way the receiver responds to the message the sender is expressing. So if you remember last week, we talked about sender, receiver, the message. So feedback is what happens when the message comes across from the sender to the receiver. The receiver feeds back information to the sender. how that sender responds as feedback. Filtering is the group of perceptions that a message passes through when it is being exchanged. Total communication. It exists when the exact information the sender intends to convey is understood completely by the receiver. So you get the entire message across to the receiver. Individuals interpret messages using their perceptions, including values, needs, feelings, and experiences. These all affect the way you think. And a good example of that could be, political beliefs. So, you might hear, Joe Biden trying to convey a message to a group of conservatives or Republicans, and they're just not going to agree with it, more than likely. Okay, vice versa for President Trump. If he's trying to convey a message to liberals or Democrats, that message probably isn't going to be conveyed very well. So the object of feedback is to report to the sender what the receiver sees, hears, feels towards the transmission. Pretty simple. Okay, the receiver must give feedback as soon as transmission of the message takes place. So, if we're talking like social media, somebody may post something on Facebook, and once you see it and you decide you want to comment on it, that's feedback. And the receiver should use the same channel for feedback as the source used. So again, if it's Facebook, you see something on Facebook, you're not going to comment or message somebody on Instagram about it. Decoding is when the receiver takes the message and converts it into a form that can be understood. So, it could be trying to convey a message that wouldn't normally get out there in a traditional fashion. So they try to convey it through music or something along those lines. So how can communication be improved? Well, we're going to come back to interference. Interference is anything that is or could be a blockage in the communication process. So if we kind of limit interference can come from sources outside the receiver. Noise in the classroom could come from the receiver not paying attention or doing something else. So that's how can you improve that? Here's some major ways to improve that communication. Improve perception. Put yourself in the other person's position and assume his or her emotions, and separate the facts from opinions. So I think that's really important when you're listening to a message. Put yourself in those person's shoes and trying to understand where they're coming from when they're conveying this message. Improve the physical process of communication by providing feedback. So that person may not be the most effective communicator, and if you provide proper feedback, positive, helpful feedback, that's going to help that communication process. Okay. Improve relationships by building trust and confidence. So if somebody trusts you or they're confident in you, you're more than likely going to hear that message. Nonverbal communication. What are some examples of it? Well, nonverbal communication is exchanging information without the use of words. Pretty straightforward. It requires the same: a sender, a receiver, a message, and then a medium of some kind. Nonverbal communication. The sender may not be aware that the message is being sent. So here's some cues. There's signals that we use to tell each other about our emotional state, attitudes, or information about ourselves. You guys might shoot each other a look in classes and think something's funny or disgusting, and you might look at each other and that other person knows exactly what you're thinking. So there are 4 major forms of nonverbal cues. Sign language. Okay, this is the main one. I mean, it's a type of communication that takes the place of the spoken word. Head movements, shoulder shrugs, etc. Action language, body movements, body language. That's action language. Paralanguage, vocal sounds that influence the expression of spoken word. And then object language, that includes physical items that convey messages. Nonverbal cues can send several messages. Cultural and contextual factors affect the way messages are interpreted. You can do research to understand the cultural differences and similarities. Us living in the small town of Melrose is a lot different culture than living in like a big city like Chicago. So the way people perceive things is different. Context, it refers to the things that in the experiment help determine the meaning of the cue. So more examples: 6 commonly used nonverbal cues: eye contact, facial expressions, distance, tone of voice, appearance, and body movements. Okay, so we're at the end here, guys. Things I wanted you to pay attention to and understand is, which skills will enhance your communication abilities. You need to be able to identify the steps of becoming an effective speaker, compare and contrast skimming, scanning, and summarizing, and then identify the 5 levels of communication. You need to know those. So this week for assignments, we're going to have a discussion and a quiz, and that's it. 2 assignments. I'll put the discussion on Tuesday and make the quiz Thursday, but I'll post them all on Tuesday. And guys, I'm probably going to move towards doing 2 assignments a week for the rest of the time we're doing online learning. I'm going to do 2 assignments a week. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. I don't want to overwhelm myself. Last week I was having a hard time getting everything put up because there was so much for each of my classes. So, you watch the video, you do my assignments, you guys will be doing good. You're still going to get everything I wanted you to get from this lesson. It doesn't even come close to being able to learn in person. I really hope we get to come back soon. After the first 9 weeks, I hope we get to be back in school. That's where I would like to be. I like to see you guys in the classroom. I'd like to, I've reorganized the classroom, redone a few things, cleaned up some more, and I think it looks good. So, hopefully we get to come back to school, guys, and we can be in class, and that's the ultimate goal. But we'll kind of see what happens. We'll keep playing it by ear. But as long as we're doing this online stuff, I'm probably only going to do 2 assignments, and more than likely it'll be like a discussion and a quiz for the week. As long as you guys follow along and pay attention on the videos, it'll be pretty easy. So as always, if you have a question or concern with anything in the class, just text me, message me on Wisdom. I'll answer those. I try to stay on Wisdom and pay attention to who messages me there. So if you message me on Friday or Saturday, I may not see it, guys. Just being quite honest with you, I may not see it. So I may not see it until I get back to school on Monday or Tuesday. So, but just know that I will get back to you eventually. So, so that's all for this week. We'll kind of continue this on next week. See you guys.